Amelia's face lights up with a soft smile as she hands Daniel the envelope. "You've always been there for me, Daniel. This is just my way of helping us both." Daniel's eyes flicker with a mix of emotion, appreciation, guilt, and maybe even a hint of shame. He holds the envelope in his hands, unsure of what to say next. The weight of the gesture seems to hit him hard, and he feels like he's let her down. "Amelia, I know I've been distant lately," Daniel admits, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just so caught up in trying to get this business off the ground. I don't want you to feel like you have to carry the load for both of us." Amelia leans forward, her hand resting gently on his. "I know you're trying, Daniel. I see it. But we're in this together, remember? I believe in you." Her words seem to settle on him like a balm, but the guilt still lingers. He rubs his face, clearly feeling conflicted. I don't want you to sacrifice everything for me," he says quietly. "You're working so hard, and I'm not sure if I'm even going to be able to make this business work." Amelia gazes at him with steady determination, her voice soft but unwavering. "We've been through so much already, Daniel. One setback doesn't define us. You'll make it work. But in the meantime, I've got you. I'm not going anywhere." Daniel's eyes flicker with appreciation, and he reaches for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Amelia," he murmurs, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for believing in me, even when I can't always believe in myself." Amelia smiles, feeling both grateful and weary. That's what love is, isn't it? Believing in each other when we don't have the strength to believe in ourselves. Daniel looks at her, his heart heavy with gratitude. "You're right. I'll keep fighting for us, Amelia, I promise." And as the scene fades out, it's clear that despite the burdens they carry, Amelia's quiet strength, belief in their shared future, and unwavering love will continue to propel them forward, no matter what challenges lie ahead. The day after their chance encounter, Daniel finds himself restless, his thoughts drifting back to Sarah. He can't shake the feeling of having been pulled back in time to a moment when life seemed simpler, before all the responsibilities with Amelia and the baby. The guilt starts to creep in, but it's quickly overshadowed by the allure of the past. At home that evening, as Amelia goes to bed early, exhausted from her long day of work, Daniel sneaks a look at Sarah's social media profile. Her life seems full of excitement and adventure, the life Daniel once dreamed of. He tries to focus on his thoughts about Amelia, his loving wife who is carrying their child and supporting him through all his struggles. But his mind keeps drifting back to the moments he shared with Sarah, the carefree love they had. A few days later, Daniel meets Sarah for coffee at a small cafe in the center of town. As they sit across from each other, the conversation flows easily, the connection between them undeniable. Sarah tells him about her life abroad, how she's traveled, met new people, and even dated others. Daniel listens, but part of him still clings to the idea of the life they could have had together. He finds himself laughing at jokes that feel so natural, and for a brief moment, he feels like the same person he was when they were together, carefree and unburdened. "What about you?" Sarah asks after a pause. "How's life in the city? You always said you wanted to make it big." Daniel hesitates, his thoughts clouded by guilt. He feels a deep sense of responsibility toward Amelia and their growing family, but Sarah's presence makes him question everything. He wants to be honest, but he can't bring himself to mention Amelia. He doesn't want to complicate things. Not now. Not when he's enjoying this moment of familiarity with Sarah. So he just says, "It's complicated. Things are different now, but I'm getting by." Sarah raises an eyebrow. "Getting by? I always thought you were a go-getter, Daniel." Daniel smiles, trying to brush off the tension. "Yeah, well, life has a way of keeping you on your toes." Sarah leans forward, her gaze lingering on him. "You know, I never really understood why we broke up. It was like we just stopped. No real reason." Daniel shifts uncomfortably in his seat. "I think we just grew apart. You moved, and I stayed here." But as he says it, he realizes the words don't feel entirely true. There was more to it, a disconnect that neither of them fully acknowledged at the time. "And what about now?" Sarah presses, her tone softer. "Do you still think about me?" The question hits harder than he expected. The old flame still burns in the back of his mind, but he doesn't know how to respond without betraying Amelia. He stammers, unsure of how to navigate the conversation. "Look, I don't want to make things complicated," he finally says, his voice betraying the conflict in his mind. "But maybe it's best if we just leave things where they are." Sarah's face falls slightly, but she nods, accepting his answer. "I get it. Things change, right? We can't go back." As they say their goodbyes and part ways, Daniel walks away with a heavy heart. The pull between his past and present is stronger than he anticipated, and as much as he tells himself he's made the right choice with Amelia, he can't shake the feeling that a part of him is still tangled in his history with Sarah. That night, lying beside Amelia, Daniel wrestles with his emotions. Amelia sleeps peacefully, unaware of the inner turmoil that's slowly beginning to fracture his resolve. He looks at her, feeling the weight of the responsibility he has toward their family, but also the weight of his unresolved past. He turns over, silently vowing to make things right. But he's unsure how. Amelia tries to brush off the uneasy feeling that has settled in her stomach, but it lingers, growing more insistent with each passing day. She starts noticing more little things. Daniel's phone screen always turned face down, his long hours at the office, and his distracted responses when she asks about his day. Despite all of this, she remains supportive, keeping herself busy with preparations for the baby and trying to keep a positive attitude for both their sakes. But the nagging sense that something is wrong doesn't fade. One evening, as she's sitting in the living room, carefully arranging baby clothes in the nursery, Amelia hears the familiar sound of the front door opening. Daniel walks in, his face drawn and tired. He doesn't greet her like he normally does. Instead, he heads straight for the kitchen, pouring himself a glass of water. Amelia watches him, unsure of what to say. She finally speaks, her voice quiet but filled with concern. "Daniel, are you sure everything's okay? You've been distant lately, and I'm getting worried." He doesn't look at her immediately, his focus still on the glass in his hand. "I told you, it's just work. Stress is getting to me. It's nothing." Amelia forces a smile. She knows better than to push him too hard. But the uncertainty gnaws at her, making her feel more alone than she ever has before. She watches him walk past her and into their bedroom, and for a moment, she debates whether to confront him again. But instead of asking more questions, Amelia focuses on the baby. She knows the challenges they will face ahead, and she wants to remain strong, not just for herself, but for the new life growing inside her. She feels a pang of sadness, though. Why does she feel like she's doing this alone? A few days later, as Amelia finishes her daily cleaning routine, she stumbles upon something that shakes her to the core, a receipt from a cafe. It's tucked away in a drawer of the kitchen counter, an unfamiliar name written on the top. The receipt is dated the same day Daniel had told her he was at a business meeting. Her stomach tightens as she reads the total, the address, and the time. She tells herself it's nothing. It could be from a meeting he had with someone else, maybe a client or colleague. She tries to talk herself out of the creeping suspicion, but deep down, she knows something isn't right. "Don't jump to conclusions," she whispers to herself. "Trust him." But the doubt has already taken root. She decides to leave the receipt in the drawer, choosing not to bring it up to Daniel, at least not yet. Amelia knows that if she asks him about it now, she'll be setting herself up for heartbreak. The last thing she wants is to feel like she's invading his privacy, but the longer she sits with her doubts, the heavier they become. Days turn into weeks, and the pregnancy progresses. Despite the growing excitement of the baby's arrival, Amelia's mind is filled with worry, and every time Daniel comes home late or seems distracted, she feels that knot tighten inside her chest. She tries to maintain a sense of normalcy, attending doctor's appointments alone, reading books on baby care, and setting up the nursery, hoping that if she distracts herself long enough, she might be able to ignore the growing disconnection between them. But in the quiet moments, when she's left alone with her thoughts, her mind always returns to that receipt. She can't shake the feeling that something is being hidden from her, and the fear of it consumes her. Every day she wonders if Daniel is really just stressed, or if something deeper is at play. Amelia stands there, her body trembling with the weight of the betrayal, staring at Daniel as if seeing him for the first time. The phone, still clutched in her hand, feels like a heavy weight. She lets it fall onto the table, her gaze never leaving his face. Daniel stands frozen, looking at her with wide, regretful eyes. His voice cracks as he takes a step toward her. "Amelia, please let me explain. It's not what you think." Amelia shakes her head, tears streaming down her face. "How could it not be what I think? You've been seeing her behind my back, lying to me, and I've been here, thinking I was doing everything right. You told me you were stressed about work, but it wasn't work, was it? It was her. You were too busy for me, for us, but you still had time for her." Her voice rises, filled with a mix of hurt and anger. "I supported you, Daniel. I worked myself to the bone. I took on extra jobs to help with your business. I've given up my own dreams to help you pursue yours. And now, this?" Daniel's face pales as the truth hits him like a ton of bricks. His throat tightens. "Amelia, I never wanted to hurt you. I never meant for this to happen. I never stopped thinking about Sarah. We had something special, and when she came back, I didn't know how to say no." Amelia's eyes widen in disbelief. "You never stopped thinking about her?" Her voice breaks, and she fights to keep it steady. "And what about me? What about our future? Our family?" Daniel stumbles over his words, trying to find the right thing to say. "I've been confused, Amelia. I've been torn between my past and my present, and I made the biggest mistake of my life. I never wanted to hurt you. You have to believe that." Amelia takes a step back, shaking her head in disbelief. "You think I can believe that? You think I can just forget about all of this? You're telling me you never thought about the family we were supposed to build together, about our baby?" Her stomach tightens as she looks down at the baby bump, a bitter reminder of the love she thought she and Daniel had built together, a life that now feels like it's crumbling in front of her. "I gave up so much for you," she continues, her voice trembling with emotion. "I stopped chasing my own dreams because I thought I was building something with you, and now you've betrayed me, us." Daniel's guilt deepens and he lowers his gaze. "I'm sorry, Amelia. I know nothing I can say will make this right. I've messed up so badly. You don't deserve this." Amelia looks at him one last time, tears in her eyes but a newfound determination growing inside her. "No, Daniel. I don't deserve this, and neither does our baby. I won't let you tear apart everything I've worked for. You've made your choice." She turns to leave the room, but then stops and looks back at him. "You'll need to make your own decisions now, Daniel. I'm done waiting for someone who doesn't know how to appreciate me." With that, she walks out of the room, leaving Daniel standing there, a broken man, realizing just how far he's gone in betraying the woman who loved him unconditionally. Daniel sits in the dim light of the living room, his eyes fixed on the empty nursery across the room. The soft glow of the nightlight in the corner seems almost symbolic, highlighting the space that's meant for their child, but currently devoid of warmth. It's as if everything in the house is waiting, suspended in time for something to shift. He exhales deeply, the weight of the night's events settling heavily on his shoulders. Amelia had left the night before, taking refuge at her mother's house after the confrontation. Her words echoed in his mind, replaying over and over. "I gave up everything for you, Daniel. How could you do this to me?" The pain in her voice still stings, a reminder of how much trust he had betrayed. He thought about everything she had sacrificed, her dreams, her independence, her sense of security, all for him, for their family. And how had he repaid her? By being unfaithful, by allowing the past to cloud the future they were trying to build together. He looks at the crib again, imagining their baby lying there, their life together about to begin. Yet he had almost destroyed it all with his thoughtlessness. A knock on the door breaks his reverie. He wipes his eyes and straightens up, trying to shake off the guilt. He walks over to the door and opens it to find his phone buzzing on the table, a message from Sarah. "Can we talk?" The cafe is quiet when Daniel walks in, the soft clink of cups and the gentle hum of conversation filling the air. He spots Sarah at a corner table, sitting with her hands folded in front of her. Her eyes are warm but distant, understanding but resigned. He sits across from her, the weight of everything between them. For a moment, neither speaks. The tension hangs in the air like a thick fog. Finally, Daniel breaks the silence. "Sarah, I can't do this anymore," he says, his voice heavy with regret. "Amelia is the one who has stood by me through everything, my failures, my mistakes. She's the one I should be fighting for." Sarah doesn't seem surprised, though the sadness in her eyes is unmistakable. She looks down at her hands, then back up at him. "I know," she says quietly. "I know, Daniel. You've always been good to me, but I knew deep down it wasn't right. You were always torn between two worlds." Daniel's heart feels like it's breaking in two. "I've been selfish, Sarah. I kept holding on to something that wasn't real, something from the past. I was afraid of losing it, but I didn't stop to think about what I could lose if I didn't let go. I almost lost her, the one person who really believes in me." Sarah nods slowly, her expression softening. "I hope you make things right with her, Daniel. You have a chance to rebuild everything with Amelia. Don't let it slip away." Daniel's eyes well up as he stares at the woman in front of him. He had spent so many years thinking about what he could have had with Sarah, but now, for the first time, he realizes that the person he truly wanted to be with, the one who truly had his heart, was Amelia. "I'm sorry," he whispers, almost to himself. "I hurt you, and I hurt the one person who never stopped believing in me." He stands up, his legs shaky, and pauses. "Thank you for everything, but I need to go back to her." Sarah stands up as well, and they exchange a brief, bittersweet hug. "I wish you both the best, Daniel. I hope you make her proud." As he walks out of the cafe, Daniel feels like he's finally taking a step in the right direction. The past, though still haunting him, is behind him. It's time to focus on the future, on Amelia, on their child, on the life they could still build together. He walks out into the cool afternoon air, feeling lighter, more certain. It's time to fight for the love he almost lost. Daniel stands nervously at the door of Amelia's mother's house, holding a bouquet of flowers in one hand and a letter in the other. He feels a lump form in his throat as he raises his hand to knock. This is it, the moment where he hopes to make things right. When the door opens, Amelia's mother greets him with a polite but guarded look. "She's inside," she says, stepping aside. Daniel steps in, his heart pounding, and walks into the living room where Amelia sits. She's holding their sonogram photos, and when she sees him, her expression hardens. There's still so much pain in her eyes, and it breaks his heart. "Amelia," Daniel says softly, his voice full of regret. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging for another chance. You and our child mean everything to me." Amelia doesn't say anything right away. Her eyes are steady, cold even, as she studies him. Finally, she speaks, her voice tight with emotion. "Words aren't enough, Daniel. You broke my trust. You hurt me in ways I don't know how to explain. I gave you everything, and you—" Her voice trails off, the hurt still fresh in her voice. "I know, and I'm sorry," Daniel says, his voice breaking. He hands her the letter, his hands shaking slightly. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want you to know that I will spend every day proving to you that I can be the man you deserve." Over the next few weeks, Daniel works tirelessly to rebuild the trust he shattered. He attends every one of Amelia's doctor's appointments, showing up early and waiting for her with a cup of coffee in hand. At home, he takes over all of the household responsibilities. He cooks, cleans, and makes sure that Amelia has everything she needs. He also begins therapy, realizing that he needs to address the emotional baggage he's carried for so long. Every session is a step toward healing, not just for him, but for his marriage. Slowly, Amelia begins to notice his genuine effort. One evening, after Daniel has spent the day helping her with the nursery, she sits beside him on the couch. "I see the changes, Daniel," she says quietly, "but it's going to take time." Daniel nods. "I know. And I'll give you as much time as you need." Amelia doesn't say anything else, but for the first time in weeks, there's a flicker of hope in her eyes. It's a small step, but it's a step in the right direction. Months have passed, and the moment Daniel has been working toward finally arrives. The hospital room is quiet, except for the soft beeping of the monitors and the gentle cooing of their newborn son. Amelia, exhausted but smiling, lies in the bed, cradling their baby boy in her arms. Daniel stands beside her, tears welling in his eyes as he looks down at their son, then back at Amelia. "Thank you for giving me another chance to be the man you and our son deserve," he says, his voice thick with emotion. Amelia gazes at him, her expression softening. She gently strokes the baby's tiny hand. "We're a family, Daniel, but don't forget, trust takes time to rebuild." Daniel nods, his eyes filled with gratitude and determination. He's learned from his mistakes, and he knows that this journey isn't over. "I won't forget," he promises, his voice steady, but full of sincerity. "I'm going to be the father and husband you need, every single day." The room feels brighter, the weight of their past struggles lifting as they share a moment of peace. Amelia leans back, her hand resting gently on their son. Daniel sits next to her, placing a hand on her shoulder, feeling the quiet strength of their bond. The baby yawns, and they both laugh softly, the tension of the past slowly melting away. The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear. They're in this together. With love, commitment, and patience, they will face whatever comes their way. As Daniel looks at his family, his heart swells with love, knowing that this new chapter of their lives is just the beginning of something beautiful. The final scene fades into a sunny afternoon at a park, where Daniel, Amelia, and their baby are enjoying a peaceful moment together. Amelia and Daniel push their son gently on the swing, laughing as he giggles in the air, his tiny hands reaching out to the sky. The sound of their joy fills the air, the weight of past struggles now replaced by the warmth of family. Daniel takes a moment to glance at Amelia, his heart full of gratitude. He whispers to her, "We made it." She smiles softly in response, knowing that their love and commitment have brought them this far. As the camera pulls back, Daniel's voice narrates over the scene. Love isn't just about words or feelings, it's about actions and commitment. Never take for granted the people who sacrifice everything for you.